Hey family, what's up? It's your girl Melissa D. Happy October to you. Happy new month. Happy harvest season. All of that good stuff. I'm excited to have you on today's new episode of the Activation Hour. As you've been with us, if you are new to our audience, then I want to welcome you to our Activation Nation of loyal listeners. We're excited because we are 3 seasons in, 3 seasons in, and this season we have been focusing on just activated living. What is that exactly? Activated living is just a holistic lifestyle. It's something I personally had to discover about how we live fully, how we show up in our health, in our wealth, in our finances, in our spirituality. And with October being Health Literacy Month and Quality Health Awareness Month, I don't know if y'all knew that October is a lot of things. You have breast cancer awareness, you have all these different things that are great impact to society about healthy living, healthy lifestyle. And so I want to really focus on today's topic is healthy living and how to improve quality health care. This hits very personal to me. I'm at that moment in my life where I'm counting down to my 40th birthday, and many of us have milestones where we think, man, I thought I'd be young forever. I thought I had time to lose that weight, or hey, I'll get to that. Or we think that the weight is going to come off, or we can just change up our eating habits. And we didn't get this way overnight, and it's not going to change overnight. One of the things for me, I don't know about you, when it comes to health and wellness, it was definitely discussed in my household, but that's not the case for everybody. I was very fortunate that I came from a family where my grandmother was in healthcare. And as a nurse, she very much understood the need for regular doctor's visits and checkups. We believed in having a family doctor or practitioner that knew all of us. And that was just a traditional way. Like we knew this doctor, this practitioner would know every generation of the family. There's still a great deal of importance in that. And I couldn't think of a better person to bring on the show today to share this story. I might be a little biased because not only is she an amazing, beautiful doctor coming out of the Birmingham area in Alabama, but you'll notice we share the same last name. She's my cousin by marriage, sister by choice, but an amazing, highly gifted woman who's passionate about educating people about family health and quality health care. I'm talking about none other than Dr. Andrea White, who is an amazing physician, very passionate about people. I have watched her firsthand establish programs in her hometown community and even as far as abroad. She's a board certified family medicine physician through the American Osteopathic Board of Family Physicians, as well as the American Board of Family Medicine. She earned her doctorate in medicine from the University of Pikeville, Kentucky College of Osteopathic Medicine. Look, I'm going to get that word down before this interview is over. I've been practicing. Um, she went on to complete her residency at Cahaba Family Medicine Residency, where she served as chief resident. Dr. Andrea was awarded the Humanism in Medicine Award and has traveled on medical mission trips. And I didn't know this, y'all, about my own cousin. This is pretty amazing. That's why I love doing these interviews, is to tell these like untold stories about people. But she has globally traveled on medical missions to the Dominican Republic, Honduras, Haiti, and Africa. In addition, if that's not enough, Dr. Andrea, with a team of medical professionals, has successfully published 3 publications in the Evidence Based Practice Journal. I'm going to put her extended bio on our site and make sure you go ahead and share this right now. This is one of those episodes you want to make sure that you're taking note and you're watching with your family. She's definitely passionate about helping to improve healthcare, bring awareness to healthcare matters, and an effort to improve healthcare outcomes. I think this episode is especially important. People like to say we're in a post pandemic time when the truth is we're still living in a pandemic. And there's a lot of things we need to understand about the long term mental, physical, and emotional effects of what we've experienced over the last year and a half. Again, this episode is exceptionally important to me right now on the heels of hitting a milestone birthday. Every day actually is a milestone, especially because so many have been lost and it could have been prevented in some cases. So I want you to welcome to today's show, none other than my guest, Dr. Andrea White. After our intro, you'll hear more from this amazing medical maven. Hey, Drea.
How are you?
I'm so excited. Look, for the sake of formality, I will call you Dr. Andrea for today's show. I'm blessed and fortunate to know you just as my cousin Drea, but I so admire not only your work ethic, but your level of professionalism and passion. I have seen you work tirelessly and relentlessly for years now. But you just reached like a new plateau in what you do. You're not only a practitioner of medicine, but you said you want to educate people. And
Yeah,
when you text me like, "Hey, I'm launching. I'm going out there," I was like, let's do it. I'm like ready to hold hands
yes,
with you. And that's what you say, like, "Boy, I sure know who to call when it's time to
yes,
jump."
yes,
So I want
yes.
to just
Def-
congratulate you on your new platform. Tell the activation, our audience, more about yourself, about who you are as a doctor, but also your new platform.
Well, hello, everyone. As she said, she gave me such a wonderful introduction. I appreciate that. And thank you for having me here today. So, as you said, my name is Dr. Andrea White. I'm a board certified family medicine doctor. And my goal is to provide information so that I can help families and caregivers organize their health in an effort to improve healthcare outcomes. You hear a lot of people say, well, I started out as a little child wanting to, have dreams and aspirations of doing various careers. And I know it may sound a little cliche, but it really started out, for me as a little country girl growing up in Alabama, playing on some old trees with a couple of other girls in the neighborhood. And, you're like,
Mhm.
what do you want to be when you grow up? And, what do so it came around to me and I was like, well, I think I might want to go into healthcare or be a nurse or something like that. So it kind of started out there. And then there was a young lady in my church who I really looked up to. And I realized that after she finished high school, that she was going to become a nurse. So I kind of had that conversation with her. She was actually the first person that I knew personally that was in the healthcare field. And she was like, well, have you ever thought about being a doctor? And so she
Mhm.
was like the first person to actually plant that seed, of being a doctor. And it stuck with me from that time, through elementary school, middle school. Like that's the only thing that I could think of. I consider other things, but it always came back to health and, how I can help different people. And, also seeing other people in my family going through various healthcare matters. I'm like, I need to be the one to be able to give back and to offer them some expertise, later in life as a doctor. And so, many years, 11, 12 years later, here I am.
Wow. That I have to admit, that's one thing I've always admired about doctors and medical professionals. That education piece, like, I mean, I'm thinking like, 5.5, 6 years was hard, but you guys, I mean, it's pretty serious. And
It
I saw you
is.
do that up front. That was wow. But you took that education, like you said, you had a bigger why. What is it that you hope to do through your new platform? Well, let me back up. What shifted you from practicing medicine for how many years now?
Almost a decade. if you
Almost
consider
a decade.
training and everything like that, almost a decade, a little under a decade.
Okay, so you've seen a lot and you've
I
experienced a
have.
lot, and especially in the last year and a half.
Right.
Why educate people about family health and why now?
Okay. Well, being in the medical field for so long, people are always asking me questions, whether it's family members or people that I meet who find out that I'm a doctor, or, just being in social settings, people are always asking questions. Even, in the clinical setting, you're always being asked questions and solving various issues. And so it kept coming up. And then one big thing that happened for me was last summer when my dad had his second heart attack. So
Mm.
I was actually on vacation that week. And we were still in the midst of a pandemic. So instead of going, I originally thought about going on a vacation to Florida, to the beach, somewhere like that. But I decided that, let me just go to my parents. I love hanging out with my parents. So to me, that was like a vacation. I live in the country where I grew up. It's nice, peaceful. So that is a vacation to me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I just so happened to be on vacation at their home. And one night that week, my mom came upstairs, winding down, getting ready for bed. And she was like, well, your dad is complaining about chest pain. And so she tried to play it off and sound calm, but, not only as a doctor, but as a daughter, hearing that's alarming. So,
Mm-hmm.
long story short, not to draw that out, we're in the pandemic, so only one person could go. So, my mom went, and my brother followed her to the ER with him, and I stayed at home with my son because they both didn't want him to get alarmed. My husband was out of town. And
Mm-hmm.
so my dad had to be airlifted to a hospital in Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
And, when he got there, we couldn't go in. And so we were up all night, waiting to hear from the doctor. End up having a cath, and he had 100% blockage in one of his arteries.
Wow.
So scary stuff when, just for anybody to hear, but, being a doctor, hearing that, I'm just like helpless because I'm in daughter mode at this time. So after
Mm-hmm.
he survived, everything went okay. So when he got home, so I'm looking at all of his medicines that, his new medicines, his old medicines, his appointments. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I'm organizing everything. I can look and see like what are duplicates, what are medicines that are in the same category that he was on before that he needs to stop taking, various things like that. And as this is happening, I'm like, how are people organizing their health that are not in the medical field, who are caregivers, who are stay-at-home moms or dads or what have you? I'm like, how would they know how to maneuver through this? So,
Mm-hmm.
I hated that, I had to go through that. And, I would always, keep up with my parents and what they would have to do. And, various other family members, but I'm like, okay, how are people knowing when they should check up? How are they
That's a
knowing,
question.
how are they knowing like when, what are some warning signs? So all of these things kind of started then. Now, not to mention that I had already started doing community work with a nonprofit, which
Mm-hmm.
was not medical, but it was still community involvement. And, you would get various questions from people here and there. And so it just hit me. I'm like, I need to be able to put information out there that's coming, from somebody who I feel like most people that are asking me, they can relate to me. And it's information that's sound and it's coming from a good source,
Right.
to help them to know, what is it that I should be doing at this point? What are some things that I should have together to not only help me, but to help my doctor help me? So that is kind of
Mm-hmm.
where it started, and it just kind of took off. Because I'm like, everybody doesn't have a doctor as a daughter, who can know how to maneuver through these different, aspects of health. So I was like, I need to be able to kind of provide some guidance, not, as a doctor patient relationship, but as a platform where people can go and just get an idea of what they should be doing to kind of help them in this day and time.
You make an excellent point. And I wanted to type this out. And I think that's a question that I want all of our listeners and viewers to consider. What are things we can do for my family and my doctors to help me? I bring this up because this hits very personal and close to home, as the primary medical caregiver for my maternal grandmother. And it's one of those situations you never want to wait until someone you love is incapacitated or having a medical emergency. And you're like, what are they on? What medicines? I don't know the last time they
Exactly.
ate or the conditions under how they took it. Like, it
Mhm.
is the worst feeling in the world as
Yes.
the primary family member to have no direct knowledge. And that's why this topic, especially over the last year during the pandemic, it was already stressful enough. As you know, I jokingly say my mother and I co-parent an elderly person, but it feels like that
Right.
when you're caring for a loved one, and it may not necessarily be an elderly loved one, or like how you were helping your mother care for your father. It could be that you may have children with special needs. It could be
Right.
even just yourself, where you think you're seemingly healthy today, and God forbid, and emergencies happen, stuff happens. And
Okay.
you said something that struck deep, and I'm like, I wonder how many people ever thought about this before, preventively, before an emergency happens. What things can we do? What are the things we need to maybe have in order for our doctors, for our families,
Mm-hmm.
before something happens, like the situation with your father?
Right. So, I like to say we really don't know what we don't know. And
Mm,
a lot of times when we get in those emergent situations, you've got so many emotions that are going, sometimes it can be hard to think about, what do I need, and you're scrambling trying to find all these things. So, things as simple as knowing, what medications that you're taking, have them written down in a notebook, or you can have them where they're in a file, a Google Doc file, or somewhere where you can kind of keep a running list of your medicines, your medical problems, what specialists you're seeing, like procedures you have done. If you're able to organize that and have that in one place where not only just you can access it, but let's say if you're a mom and you have 4 or 5 children, even though you're a really good mom, sometimes it can be hard to keep up with everything. So if you're able to kind of have those things in order, so that when you do need them, not even just for emergent situations, let's just say if you were to move to a different city and you're establishing care with a new doctor, those are all things that are really important to have. Because, and I'll say that it's important as well, because I've had some patients just not know that, if you were in the system with one doctor, I can't see that information because it's private. So I've had some patients to say, well, I don't really keep up with, all of that medical stuff. It's in my medical file. Well, you have to think about, what if something happens and your medical file gets lost? Or what if there are some things that that have happened that are really important, but you forget them and you don't know them off the top of your head. So being able to have that information handy helps you, it helps the doctor, it helps your family. If you're a caregiver like yourself, Melissa, just having that stuff, to me, it just decreases a level of stress where you can
mhm.
put more of that focusing on the actual caregiving part.
That's so good. I don't I don't know. Like I said, I think my situation may be unique, especially in marginalized or Black and Brown communities, of being in a household where medical care was avidly talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But the more friends I talk to, like for example, I'm my mother's only child, my father's oldest. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm not just caring for myself, but I have two other generations of people to consider as I age.
Mhm.
And so I don't like, I'm terrified of the fact, like, what if I don't have a plan? I don't have anybody else to fall on to figure this out. What are some things to, as it stands today? You gave some really good tips, like questions that families need to maybe ask each other or talk about at the dinner table or during family time to get these affairs in order. And how can maybe they connect with a family practitioner like yourself to help do that?
Okay. So I'll give you an example of some of the worst case scenarios when you have let's say parents who are very healthy, they're independent, they can take care of all of their affairs, they keep up with their doctor's appointments, they go on vacations, they're able to do, pretty much the same thing that you remember them doing when you were a child. So you're not worried. However,
Mhm.
if something happens to them, even though you may have this great relationship with them, you're kind of at a loss because you don't, in many cases, you may not even know like who their primary care doctor is. So
Right.
some simple questions, I know a lot of times when, there are holidays come around, and, we're around family and, we sit around and we talk about everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about from, people will say, well, you look like you put on 10 pounds, just anything like that. But, but
Right.
what I think, and, instead, a lot of people don't like to make it an event to talk about health, but just incorporate it into moments when you're going to be together anyway. Let's say if you and your mom are in the kitchen, let's say Thanksgiving, morning or the day before when everybody's there, it's like, hey, how's everything going with your health? What are your doctors
Mhm.
saying? And it is a good idea to also ask, what medical problems do you have? Because, if you see them as just being healthy mom and dad, you may not necessarily think to ask those questions. And the more
Right.
you ask, and if you say, okay, well, do you mind if I just kind of write down your doctor's name, or if you have a specialist, just kind of so that I will have that
Mhm.
information? And, if your meds change, do you mind just sharing that with me? That way, if you're someone who is out of town and someone calls you and say, hey, such and such has happened, you have some idea of where to start. So I think if we, and I know a lot of times in the Black community, we don't like to talk about health. We don't like to talk about
Mhm.
death and things like that. But, all of those things are just a part of life.
Right.
And so I think if we use some of those opportunities when we get together to just kind of, check in from a health standpoint, that
Mhm.
way everybody kind of knows what's in the loop. They can kind of keep up with that. I think that is one way to make it really helpful.
That's a good tip. I want to challenge everyone. I mean, again, today's October 1st, and we're entering our holiday season. And, now that the world's opened up a little bit, we can probably make up for last year and have some family gatherings and Thanksgiving and, football games coming up and Christmas, all that good stuff. And just want to encourage you to hear what Dr.
You're muted.
Yeah, to have some, thank you, to have some conversations, just casually at these events. Like, don't let this time go wasted. Because again, that's the worst, is to not know if something occurs. I've started a system that I like to share, and I hope this benefits someone. This is stuff I just kind of learned the hard way out of fear and necessity. Is I keep a Google Doc or a spreadsheet with all the medicines, and just notice, like, for yourself, any small changes. Like you said, your mother got up that day and noticed, your dad said something wasn't feeling right. Be mindful when a family member says something like that. That's the first thing. I keep like a log of if there's an inconsistency in how this person would normally feel or how I personally normally feel. The other
Mhm.
thing is medications for the whole family, understanding what are typical side effects of that and being mindful of that. And I think I'm exceptionally, mindful of that with my elderly grandmother. And then sharing that with another family member. So like I schedule all appointments and things like that. And that could be a lot on one person. Um, so I think it's really important that you have some type of system of communication. Ours just happens to be digital. Hey, everything's kept on a Google Calendar. Yeah, it's digital, but we also keep records in a like fire safe lockbox in the house. God forbid there's a fire. Hey, I know medical records, health records, everything, because we don't think about that stuff.
Right. Right.
And I've just seen it happen to too many people I love. And I was like, God forbid, at least we'll have that and we can deal with it. Now, one of the things I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about this. Um, we are in a very polarizing climate right now as a country. And I won't get into the vaccine debate, but what I will say is that there are some things. I had a good friend post the other day. She said, everybody's talking about vaccines. Nobody's talking about health and wellness and a healthy lifestyle and
Mm-hmm.
things we can do just to be in better health. I also saw an interesting post where, and I don't know how factual this is, but it just made you think, right? Where a Facebook friend said, not to say that, this is no dismiss the people who have died or lost loved ones during, the pandemic to COVID-19. However, people who are seemingly of a healthier lifestyle, either they go through, if they've contracted it, have gone through it a little differently than those that may have pre-existing conditions or diseases. So with that being said, what's the biggest health crisis you've seen during the pandemic, and what are some preventive things that we can still focus on to stay healthy despite what's going on?
Right. So, believe it or not, one of the biggest things that I've seen is just plain maintenance.
Mm,
People have, and I know that may sound a little bit weird, but people, granted, we are in, a pandemic. So, we all realize that, but many people who I've seen who've had known medical problems, they get so focused, and safety is key. I'm not saying that we should be safe, wearing masks and things like that, but many times they have gotten so focused on just that particular safety that they forget about their regular maintenance things, or they don't make that a priority. For example, there have been some people who may have high blood pressure, diabetes, and whereas they may have been a little more on top of it, with getting their blood work done, with taking their medicines like they should, many times they're not getting COVID, but they are suffering from their chronic medical issues because they forget about that particular maintenance. So, that goes back to, thinking about prevention and consistency. So even though we're in the midst of a pandemic, like there are so many different options now to be able to still maintain your health. There are telehealth visits. There are some doctors who are providing home visits. There are some extended hours, before, they're letting the elderly in before some of the patients get there, or, they have different places in their clinic. So I just encourage everyone to please not forget about the basics, and make sure that you're staying on top of, your medical problems that you had, but they were doing well, but we just, and I understand that life happens, family members have gotten sick, friends have gotten sick. We've lost a lot of people during this pandemic, but I just, encourage people to make sure that you're staying on top of your maintenance, so that we can get through this pandemic, and also, just kind of make sure that we keep those wheels turning. So think about, for our car, like you make sure that you get your oil change, you make sure that you get your tune-ups, you make sure you rotate your tires and change your tires, and things like that. We need to make sure that we are keeping up with our base, because if we shouldn't treat our cars better than we treat our bodies, because
come on.
our bodies are so much more valuable than
Yes.
any man-made thing. So just I just encourage people, don't let the things that you've done so well with keeping on top of health wise just kind of fall, because you're just like, well, I'm just going to focus on other safety and just forget about the things that I know, from, before we were in these times.
Look, to me, that's the quote of the day. Don't take better care of your car than you do your body, because this body is the vehicle that's getting you through this life.
It
And that's
is.
just the way it
It
is.
is.
It may sound cliche, but we don't appreciate it until it breaks down.
That's true. That's true. And I've seen it over and over again with people, I'm like, your blood sugar was so fine, and your blood pressure was good, and we just kind of lose some of that focus, from the basics, and we just need to make sure, even though you have other things going on, just make sure we
Mhm.
keep that where it should be.
Awesome. Well, listen, I want to take a very quick break, but when we come back, I want to shift and focus on the importance, like educate us a bit on what is family health. Why is that still important and very necessary to have a family health practitioner? And then how we can continue to help families have better quality health care. Guys, don't go anywhere. If you are benefiting from this information, do not be stingy. Hit that share button, hit that subscribe button, share this with someone. Have these conversations. You do not want to miss the opportunity. Trust me, if you have a chance to be the one who could possibly prevent a major occurrence with a loved one just by being organized, just by having the facts and the information, put yourself in a position to make better healthcare decisions for yourself and for your loved ones. Don't go anywhere. I'm your girl, Melissa D. Join here with our guest for today, Dr. Andrea White, who is a family health practitioner, and we're talking about health matters for a healthy life. We'll be right back. Activation Coaching International, where we're on a mission to activate 1,000 coaches, speakers, and business owners to monetize, repurpose, and package your message, allowing you to attract your ideal clients and build platforms using your voice that generate multiple streams of income. We've helped countless coaches achieve optimal results to get the training and support they need for a successful coaching practice and speaking business. Become a certified life and business coach to enhance your skills and serve at mass. Learn how to build a platform that attracts your ideal clients through Activation Coaching International. Apply today. All right, family, you've been tuned into today's episode. We're leaping into October, which is Health Literacy Awareness Month, meaning I know we hear these things, but I'm wondering, Dr. Andrea, why is it we can hear knowledge, but we don't take action until something happens? Like, there are people who hear this, we know, and I say we because I've been in those situations. Like, I know better, I know better. Um, I guess I'm just my heart really is trying to push people to care about this now. What are some things we can do and partner with a family medical doctor? And first, let me back up. What is a family health or family medical practitioner? How is that different from, say, an internal medicine doctor, a specialist, or any of those other fields? And how
Mhm.
can we partner with the family doctor for family health?
Okay. Well, a family medicine doctor is just that. We can treat the entire family. So it can be from a fresh newborn to very seasoned elderly up into the end of life. So we see children as well as elderly people. And I also like to call family medicine kind of like the first pass physician, in primary care, because a lot of times in order to get to a specialist, they want you to see your primary care doctor first. And
Mhm.
so having having a relationship with a family medical doctor kind of makes that process a little bit easier. It's kind of like a relationship with dating. You get to know your doctor gets to know you. They kind of know, well, I say we can pick up on, those little subtle things that if we didn't know you, we may not be able to. I've had patients where, I'm used to how they are when I see them, or if I've seen them out at Walmart. So if
Mhm.
something's not right, I'm able to pick up on that because I know them and they know that I know them. And, the more they
Mhm.
try to hide it, the more they can't hide it because I can see right through it. So being able to have someone who knows not only you, but they know your mom and dad, they know your kids, and then you have children, they know them. So it's just like you create this generation that kind of make that can normalize, having a doctor. It's just like having someone
Mhm.
else on your team. A lot of times people will look at, their family medicine doctor. You'll hear some people say general doctor, and they just feel
Yeah.
like, oh, well, I'm not sick. Why do I need to see them? Well, you don't
Mhm.
know what you don't know. If you don't have someone that can follow you and do, many of those prevention things that, we
Right.
mentioned before. So it's really important to have someone that can take care of the whole family, just to kind of keep, back to that organization piece, being able to keep everything in order, all in one place with a doctor. So that is really, really key to be able to do that.
I love that you said that, and I love that you educated us about it. And truth be told, I mean, it wasn't until I was older and a bit more mature in organizing these things, I just figured a doctor is a doctor. Until you start really having to do that stuff for yourself. You're younger, when you're in college, you're on your parents' insurance. It's like, okay, well, I'll just go to the infirmary and get checked, or I'll just go to
Right.
the, urgent care clinic. And then you start to
Mm-hmm.
realize there's a difference in the level and quality of care. But
Mm-hmm.
most of all, the key word in all that you said is relationship,
Yes.
and
Yes.
having the type of relationship where that doctor knows when something's off, or they see noticeable improvements in
Mm-hmm.
things, and that trained eye. But there's nothing trumps a relationship.
Right.
You can, yeah,
Right.
you can Google any doctor, but it's
Right.
the relationship piece. um so that being said, what are, I guess, any other tips and pieces of education that you now in your new platform? I want to talk about that more. Like I said, you like have been on the front lines of medicine, serving families here, in the US and abroad. But you are launching your platform. Tell us about your platform as a speaker and blogger in the medical field, your mission and what you're doing.
Right. So just, being in a medical space, even though I've learned a lot, my patients have taught me a lot too. So listening to them, and their needs, listening to different people in the community and their needs. Like I said earlier, I felt like I needed to provide, I don't know if you would want to call it a safe space, but a place where they could come and get some information, from somebody that they can relate to, information that is sound from somebody who has not only had the training but the experience to
Mhm.
be able to kind of provide information, through my blogs, to be able to kind of guide patients, well, just people in general, on their journey to help them maneuver through the healthcare space. So it'll be information on how to get organized. Like, what are some things that you should be, telling your doctor? What
Right.
are some, should you lie to your doctor, to impress them? Because a lot, I've had patients where, they've been some tough cases. And then, I find out that, I've been going down the wrong hole because
Because
they were,
they weren't being truthful. No,
yes,
that mean
yes.
I gotta tell my doctor my real weight before like, you mean I can't tell them about that fried chicken I've been eating and all that other
Right,
stuff?
right. And so, some people, honestly think that that's what you should do, and that can
Mhm.
be dangerous and sometimes fatal depending on, the extent to what you're
Mm.
doing. So it just kind of show, provides information
Yeah.
on how to be organized, like I said, those maintenance things, the questions that you should be asking. And a lot of people don't know, the types of things they should be asking, or if something changes with my body, is this normal because I'm aging, or is this a sign
Mhm.
that something is wrong? So it'll just kind of provide information, like that out there.
That is, so I love that you said that. Don't lie to your doctor. That should be a given, but you said that like in some cases it can be fatal,
Mm-hmm.
particularly if there are small signs, symptoms, and things of that nature, or trying to
Right,
convince yourself that, oh, I'm okay.
right.
I have one friend, she will literally wear out those benefits. She's like, girl, if my toe hurt, I'm going, I'm going, I'm going. I think this is an important comment. And I'm like, girl, you crazy. But there are many of us, and I just really want to have some real conversation as we, tie up and wrap up our conversation here. Is this is I can't express enough how important it is to be real and honest. We can hear this stuff again, but we're still, as a black and brown community, we're not going to the doctor like we should. We lack the quality health care. We're still ranking the worst for most diseases, preventable diseases
Right.
that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
We're at the bottom of everything in terms of our health, and I just honestly am exhausted in hearing that about us in our community. And historically, there has been a bit of mistrust, if you will,
Right,
between
exactly.
Black and brown communities and the medical profession, and especially when you get into government involvement. But again, but do you have thoughts on how can we build better trust so that, like you said, hey, we talk about relationship, but what are some things that we can do to bridge the gap between families, communities, and family doctors such as yourself?
Right. So I think one thing that you said that I see a lot is the trust factor.
Mm-hmm.
Many of our people, if you don't look like them, they don't trust you. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have had patients who have driven, 2 hours to come see me because they trusted me, number one, because of what they may have heard from other people, but also because of what I look like. So I feel like the more that we get, more people that look like us in the healthcare field, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a doctor. It could be, RNs, LPNs, medical assistants, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, having more people in the community that actually look like us. Many times that is kind of the first step in building trust. And I would also say, listen to your body. If you feel like, there are some things that don't feel right, like just trust that and at least make the start to, ask around. People will tell you who they feel like is a quote unquote good doctor or good practitioner or someone who will
Mm-hmm.
listen. Ask for resources. I know, like with me, like I trust my friends, so if I have something that I need to address, I'm like, hey, what's the best such and such for this or such and such for that? So just ask around. People,
Right.
even if they haven't had something major, people will tell you about their positive experience. So I would say start there, give it a
Mm-hmm.
try. And that way we can start to come up in some of those areas,
Right.
of being at the bottom, when it comes to healthcare. And, once you find someone, encourage other family members because we don't want to be where, we've got our health house in order, but, our cousins and, our uncles and, nieces and nephews, they're just out there and, not saying that anything is wrong with them, but, you
Mhm.
want to take that information and say, hey, even though it's not a topic of discussion all the time, just say, hey, you may want to get checked out, make it kind of a casual thing. You may want to go down to such and such and get checked out, just to make sure everything is okay.
Right.
I feel like, especially in our community, when we don't make a big deal about things and make people feel like, oh, something's wrong if you go down there and get checked out, things like that. That,
Uh-huh.
I think that's a good start in my opinion.
That's good. And we have to be a little vigilant. Like, hey, look, check out, check on one another. Hey, have you been for your checkup? Have you been for your mammograms, your screenings, whatever
Right,
screenings are necessary? Which that is my final question is, are there certain screenings and things we need to be aware of at certain ages and certain points? I know you deal with the whole family, which is multiple generations, different
right.
ages. We
Hmm.
hit, the age range that may be more susceptible to certain conditions.
Right.
So are there some maybe suggestions you have, just so we know? Because it is hard to keep up with, well, what age do I get screened for this or that?
Right, right. That's a really good point. And, going back to having that relationship with the doctor, you don't have to remember all those things, because
Mm,
we keep up with all the latest guidelines. So even though things are changing, for example, with pap smears,
mhm.
ladies, it used to be where, you get them, when you first become sexually active and things like that. But the guidelines have changed with that. And so,
Mhm.
you don't have to get them even yearly at times now. But all of those things are dependent on certain factors that your doctor will be able to keep up with and know, mammograms. So,
Mhm.
there are certain ages, with different recommendations from different sources. But let's say if you've had a mom who's had breast cancer, then you would need to start getting your screenings earlier
Right.
than the typical person because you're more at risk. Or same thing with colonoscopies. Yeah, some say 45, some say 50. But let's say if your dad had colon cancer at age 35, well, that knocks you into a different category. So
Right.
being able to have a family doctor who knows, that keeps up with things like that and that knows your particular situation can kind of tailor things so that it works out, specifically for you and your situation to hopefully be able to prevent some of those things from coming on board with you by doing those screenings earlier.
This is so good. So, listen, guys, if you're tuning into this, make sure you follow all of the tips that Dr. Andrea has shared with us today. You do not want to be in a position where you're having to be reactive to a medical emergency when you have the opportunity, the God given opportunity to be proactive in the health of you and your family. So, are any programs, materials that you're launching with the start of your new program, and tell us where people can find out more information about you and education through your platform.
All right. Well, I do have a website, drandreaw.com. So that's DRANDREIAW.com. So that will be launching next week. So look out for that. And, as we start to develop that more, there will be some things to come. So make sure that you're following me at Dr. Andrea W on Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and Facebook.
Awesome. Well, guys, if you have gotten great information from this episode, don't be stingy. Go subscribe, share this episode, whether you're joining us live with our Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter community. And if you're catching the replay, just put hashtag replay so you know that you joined the Activation Nation and that you're getting this good information. You can learn more about my guest today, Dr. Andrea White, in the show notes Or you can also go to our website at the Activation Hour, check out our blog, and see my notes because I'm always taking good notes to keep you activated. Again, we're focusing this month on activated living. If you have been rocking with me for a while now, you know season one was about unlearning, season two was about becoming, and now we want to put it all together for activated living. I'm so excited that I had the opportunity to learn this much about you and your passion for medicine. And again, I think we're gonna have a different conversation around the Thanksgiving and Christmas table this year when it comes to family health. So, Dr. Andrea, my cousin, Drea, thank you for being my special guest on the show and
Thank you.
congratulations on your new platform.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, family. So make sure again you subscribe, turn on your notifications. We go live on Fridays at 12 p.m. Eastern, and you can catch all the replays on our YouTube channel. I'll see you on the next one. Until then, stay activated. Bye.
Bye.